on the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited in exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society.
Well, hello everyone out there in YouTube and Facebook. We really appreciate you coming on, and TikTok as well. We really appreciate you coming on and wanting to be on listening into the Six Screens tonight. Well, what we do here every Saturday night, we've been doing it for 20 years, exposing the Watchtower organization. Friends, it's a dangerous, destructive cult. And a lot of people have really had their lives turned upside down by being involved with the Watchtower organization. Well, we have a former Jehovah's Witness elder. His name is Joe DiDorio. He's coming in from Colorado, and he's going to be talking to us tonight. And he's going to be saying a lot, so you want to listen very close. Joe will keep you on the edge of your seat. But Joe tonight is going to be focusing on how elders made mountains out of molehills. So let's bring Joe on right now and say hello to Joe. And we can do that by simply doing this. Hello, Joe.
How you doing, Rick?
I'm doing good, Joe. My goodness. So is it cold out in Colorado?
Oh, yeah. We had a snow. We had about 4 inches, but we'll get some more. I'm sure you're getting more snow than we are.
Well, I'll tell you, we only get there's hardly any on the ground. But it did snow the other day. We got a couple of inches. But boy, it's been cold, Joe. It's been cold, but it's winter. What are you going to do,
Yeah.
So anyways, Joe, you're a former elder. I'm going to kind of let you tell the audience about yourself. And I'm here in the background. I'll be putting some pictures up for you. And we're looking forward to what you have to say. So if you need me, just reach out to him. I'm here, okay?
Okay, sounds great. So I've been on the show a couple times, but I'll go ahead and give you my Watchtower resume. I was raised in the Watchtower. I was in the Watchtower for a little over 49 years, served as an elder for 14 years, and actually after that, I was dismissed from the Watchtower, which actually was a blessing. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that I witnessed as a kid, some of the things I witnessed when I started studying again, because I did leave at one time, and then when I became an elder. But I think you'll all agree, when you're in Watchtower life, when you're in the Watchtower Corporation, it's not only the elders, but it's the elderettes, the pioneers, the whole structure. There are a lot of people in the congregation that make mountains out of molehills, and that's what I want to talk about tonight. But before I do, what I would like to do is just start off by saying, when I was raised in the Watchtower, I started going to the Kingdom Hall in the early 60s. Now, believe it or not, I remember people actually, they would have an hour talk. It wasn't a 45-minute public talk. It wasn't a half hour. They've made a lot of adjustments, but they would have an intermission. And I remember this as a little kid. And people would go out and smoke cigarettes. You could go out in the parking lot and light a cigarette. And I'll never forget that, because it was a 15-minute intermission. And some of you that have been in the Watchtower, that were in the Watchtower in the 60s, probably remember that. Another thing that I remember, and of course, when you're young, you soak this stuff up. I never knew that people would actually get kicked out of the Watchtower. I was a little boy, and I'll never forget, an elder had been asked to go up to the platform, and he made an announcement that a certain individual was disfellowshipped. Now, I had never heard that term before. And right when he mentioned her name, this lady collapses. She was behind me, and I'm this little boy, and she is bawling. She's on the ground, like in the fetal position. And I asked the woman that brought me in the world, her name was Veronica, I said, what happened? And she said, you can't talk to her anymore. So, in my mind, because the propaganda they were showing me was Armageddon, Armageddon. We studied a book called Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained, and there was an Armageddon picture in there. And I thought, if you got disfellowshipped, you're done. You're executed. There's no coming back. I did not know the structure of Watchtower. Now, the reason I brought that up is because now that I'm out, I don't really keep up a lot with Watchtower talks. I don't watch jw.org. Every once in a while, I'll do that. By the way, our congregation was called the Lakeview Congregation. I always tell this joke. I tell people that they should have called it the Green Mile Congregation, because about every other week somebody got whacked, somebody got disfellowship. So anyway, I don't really follow jw.org. I follow some YouTube channels, ex-witness channels. I follow Six Screens and channels like that because we need community. But I did watch, I don't know if it was the annual meeting or if it was a district convention, but one of the new governing body members made a very profound statement. And I believe he said this. He said, the governing body, or the Watchtower, represented by the governing body, do not have to apologize for change of doctrine or change of policy. And I think that happened about 7-8 months ago. And I knew something big was going to happen. And sure enough, one of the policies they changed was the counting of time. Men could wear beards, women could wear pants, and there were some other things. I believe there's a new policy where if you go to the hall and you're disfellowshipped, they could say hello to you. But here's the problem I have with that. That comment where the governing body, who represents the Watchtower, right? The Watchtower Corporation, they made a blanket statement that they don't have to apologize. So any past changes, for example, let's talk about the selective service. There were men that went to prison over selective service. There are people, I believe, in South Korea that are still in prison because of the selective service policy. Now, they say they don't have to apologize. How can you do that to people and then change the rules and say, okay, now you can do selective service to stay out of prison? You could do selective service so you don't become a convicted felon. Well, it's too late for a lot of people. That's just one example. Another example that blankets, organ transplants. One time people died because they couldn't get an organ transplant. But see, the Watchtower covers the organization because they said they don't have to apologize for any doctrinal procedure or any policy. So there are other examples, the blood fractions. I mean, how do you apologize to a family that lost their child and they could have had some sort of blood fraction? So again, I just wanted to share that. But this is the same organization, the same governing body that encourages elders to make mountains out of molehills. They will cause havoc on the lives of people and fail to apologize, but yet with the most smallest little things, they'll hurt people, they'll destroy lives. So what I'd like to do is start off when I was younger. I'm going to give some examples, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about how, as an elder, uh, congregational elders would make big little things, they would make them large. They would make these mountains out of molehills. So let's start with when I was younger. And I want to start with around 1972. I came from a town that had a large steel mill. In fact, at one time, at its height, it employed about 5,000 people. They started laying people off. Well, at the same time, they opened up some factories. And I'll never forget, they had a local needs talk. And again, this is the organization that says they don't have to apologize to people, right? They did a local needs about brothers not working at these facilities. Now, these were brothers that were on unemployment. They were running out of unemployment. They were going to have to be on food stamps because they lost their jobs at the CFNI and other areas. And they could not, it was a directive. They could not work at these facilities. Why? Because they made a certain airplane part for the military, both facilities. They made helicopter parts and airplane parts. Now, here's the problem with that. What do we know about the Watchtower today? They made a mountain out of a molehill, and yet today, you could actually Google this. They are a part of an organization called OC, which is a democratic organization. It's pretty much, I put it down, it's an NGO. They have a representative that mixes company with government officials. And yet they did not allow brothers to have a job where they could feed their families. And let me tell you, for 2-3 years, brothers and sisters were on food stamps. They were struggling. The Watchtower didn't care. And so that's just one example of their hypocrisy. And I believe, and again, I'm only going to say allegedly, I believe that the Watchtower is actually invested in organization or companies like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and we know they make parts for military aircraft. So again, allegedly, I don't have the documentation, but I do know they're still a part of an organization called OC, which is an NGO, and they mix company with political people for their political agenda. So that's one example. And that happened around 1972. Now, here's another example of how elders can make a mountain out of a molehill. I was probably about 11 years of age. Now, I was not one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Veronica, the woman that brought me in the world, and her husband, who was not only a man in good standing, but a full-blown alcoholic and a womanizer and something else, and I'll talk about that later. Well, I was raised in the Watchtower, but I was not baptized. My uncle, who got most of the family in the Watchtower, was baptized in an elder in the congregation. Now, when my grandpa died, my grandpa was a Catholic, and one of my uncles, who was not a witness, called me and asked if I could be a pallbearer. Now, for the first 3 years of my life, I lived with my grandpa until Veronica finished school and got married. She married a guy that worked at the steel mill, CFNI.
Here's an answer from Pew Research.
Anyway, at the time, I told my uncle I would love to be a pallbearer. It'd be a privilege. I loved my grandpa. He was a barber. Well, I get a call from my uncle. Now remember, I am not one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I go to the Kingdom Hall. I may be known as an associate, but I was not a publisher and I was not baptized. So I want to be a pallbearer for my grandpa with my other cousins. Get a call from my uncle, and he says, you can't do that because you're going to end up going into the Catholic Church. And so I struggled with that, but I went ahead and declined. I called my other uncle. I said, I can't do that. And that really hurt me. But here's the interesting thing. He made this mountain out of molehill, right? He made a big thing out of a little thing. About a year later, I was riding my bike. Now, my uncle was an elder. He was also involved in CSA, but he never got removed for that because of the two witness rule. The only reason he was ever removed is he was a sadist. He loved seeing people in pain. He had 5 kids. The 2 youngest were twins, and he beat them so bad that Child Protective Services had to remove the kids. That's why he got removed. But anyway, let me backtrack. Let me digress. I'm riding my bike one day. Now, this is the guy that told me I could not be a pallbearer for my grandpa because I would have to go into the Catholic Church. So I am riding my bike and I see my uncle in his car. And he's in the parking lot of the Catholic Church. Now, there are several Catholic churches in this town, but this was the big diocese. And actually, there was a cemetery nearby too. And my uncle is parked in the Catholic Church. And I'm kind of wondering what's going on. So I'm riding my bike. Now, guys, I'm not going to get too graphic, but my uncle, the elder, well, I think he was removed at that time, he was like sitting back, and I'm going to try to be gracious. He was doing something that would be totally inappropriate. He was going up and down with a stick shift, okay? But the problem, it was a standard. It was not a stick shift, okay? So you know what I'm talking about? So here's my uncle telling me I can't go into the Catholic Church to be a pallbearer. I wasn't a witness, and yet he was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, at one time an elder, a man in good standing, in the parking lot of a Catholic church, playing with himself. That is the hypocrisy of the Watchtower. And I think all of us have stories like that. I'm just sharing a couple of them. So that's one of the stories of me growing up. Then I left. I moved to Kansas, and I started working for the federal government. And I became a compliance officer / investigator, which I didn't have to carry a firearm because, that would have caused a lot of problems. But I still did investigative work for the federal government. Well, anyway, a knock on the door, and they were witnesses. Now, I was living the life. I was not baptized. I had been out of the been out for about 6 months, not going to any meetings. And I was really starting to enjoy life. I had my own apartment. I did have a roommate. In fact, he won a gold medal at the Olympics. He was a really good wrestler. And so I was living the dream, and I let them come into the house, and I made the biggest mistake of my life. I told the individual that I used to go to the Kingdom Hall. And this is what he told me. He said, that if you do not go back to the hall, you're going to die. That's exactly what he told me. So he scared me, and he said, just start studying again. And so I started studying again. Now I started studying with a guy that was a full blown narcissist. I mean, this guy controlled every aspect of my life. And when I became a publisher, talk about making a mountain out of a molehill. I'll never forget. We were out in service, and I'm trying to. He was very controlling. Him and his wife were at a call, and I'm driving, and there was a sister behind me, and I'll never forget. He uh, he and his wife were at the call, and I turned the radio on because I was kind of getting bored, to be honest with you. And there was a song on, and it was the song from, I think it was the Go-Go's, "Walk Like an Egyptian." So he gets in the car, and in front of this other sister and his wife, he said, "What are you listening to?" And I said, "Just a song." He said, "Do you know that the Egyptians were God's enemies?" So I just shut it off. I said, "Okay, I'm sorry." Well, little did I know, I had no clue there were these books called Studies in the Scriptures, which has the Egyptian wings. I don't know exactly what you call them, but again, hypocrisy at its best. And he dictated every aspect of my life when I was growing up. In fact, this is the formula he gave me, and I think I shared this before. One time he sat me down. He said, "Look, you're going to be a ministerial servant." I said, "I am." He said, "Well, you're going to work on it. Here's what you got to do. You got to do twice the national average." Now, the national average was about 9 or 10. So he was telling me I got to do 20 hours a month. I got auxiliary pioneer 3 times out of the year, and don't start trouble with the elders. So, so he was trying to groom me to be a ministerial servant. He didn't even ask me. So I'm going to tell you what happened one time because they started using me before I became a ministerial servant. I was asked to go to the Kingdom Hall because somebody had broken into the hall. I think it was an inside job. Somebody broke into the hall and smashed all the porcelain in the bathrooms. And they wrote something else up. I don't know what it was, but we had to clean the whole mess. Well, anyway, I'm with the presiding overseer. He was a plumber by trade, and he's under one of the sinks. And a guy by the name of Bob, he was an elder, a jokester, and Brother Krotz, his name was Krotz. I'm not making that up. He's under the sink, and Bob gets this big wrench, a plumber's wrench about that size. Now his wife was with him, and he gets that wrench, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, "No, that's the presiding overseer," because I already had that in my mind. You don't mess with royalty in the congregation, right? That's just the way I thought. And he's looking at me, and he drops it right on Frank's. You know what I'm talking about, right? His manhood, right? And Frank gets up, and I had to get between them. They were calling each other MFers. They were going to beat the crap out of each other. Finally, the wife takes Bob out of the hall. And I'm thinking, these guys, they make the littlest thing. They make swallowing a gnat into gulping a camel. And yet they'll sling the MF word at each other. They were almost ready to punch each other out. I had never seen anything like that. If you think elders get along, I will tell you, I have hundreds of stories that some elders hate each other. That's and even I've heard even Barbara Anderson told me that there were governing body members that couldn't stand each other. So it's not a buddy system. There's not a whole lot of love in elder bodies. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you as well. So moving on, I became a servant, and then I became an elder. So now here's where I really thought elders, oh my gosh, they make the littlest things into the biggest controversies ever. So when I became an elder, I made it very clear to the Kobe. I said, well, he was presiding overseer. I said, look, I'm going to tell you something. I'll serve as an elder, but I will not be a part of judicial committees. And he said, well, that's understandable. You don't have to. And by the way, I knew brothers when they became elders, they couldn't wait to be on judicial committees. They wanted to be hatchet men for the Watchtower. I didn't want anything to do with that because when I was a kid, I saw the lady behind me go into the fetal position when she was disfellowshipped. So I didn't want any part of that. So I'll never forget, I was called to the Kingdom Hall early one time. And this was an interesting case. It wasn't a judicial committee, but a pioneer sister, had to be counseled. And so we had a heavy elder body. We hadn't split the congregations yet. We had about 11 elders. About 5 of them were older men. They didn't hardly do a lot of stuff, but we're in this meeting, and one of the elders said, there's a pioneer sister that has a tattoo. She told another pioneer sister, and the other pioneer snitched on her. And so the presiding overseer asked me, he said, are you okay with investigating this? And I wasn't doing judicial committees, and I thought, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. So I asked another brother, a younger brother, brother Dave Raffelli, good guy. And so after the meeting, she was there, and I told Dave before the meeting, I said, Dave, I hate the back room. I can't stand when elders take people to the back room. It's a stigma. I hate it because when people go to the back room, there's going to be an announcement, right? So I said, let's just meet her in the parking lot. Let's not make a big deal out of this. So we followed her out, and she had this rundown car. You got to understand the Watchtower, that's another thing. You can pioneer for them for 20, 30 years. She only pioneered for them for about 4 years, but you could pioneer for 20, 30 years. You're never going to get a car, okay? You're going to pay for your own maintenance. You know that, right? So anyway, we walk out. She's got this car that hardly runs. And I said, sis, I need to talk to you. And she kind of knew what was going on. And I said, hey, by any chance, did you get a tattoo? And you could just see this is what the Watchtower does to people. You can't have any individuality. And she kind of like in humility, in shame, she drops her head and she said, yes. And this is the first thing she said. She said, you're going to take my pioneer privileges away. And I said, no, I'm not. And I said, Dave, do you want to take her privileges away? And he said, no. I said, let me ask you this. Where's it at? She said, it's right here. And I said, okay, it's not 666, right? I was just joking with her. She goes, no. I said, you don't have any, it's not a devil, right? Now, again, I'm joking with her, right? And all it was a heart with the rose. And I said, you're fine. I said, we'll see you later, sis. So we go back the next meeting, and they wanted to know if we were going to have another meeting because they want to make a mountain out of a molehill, right? They want to make an example out of this pioneer sister. And I said, it's done. And they said, what do you mean it's done? I said, it's done. We talked to her. We made a decision, Dave and I. It's done. It's over. And so they let it go. But I can tell you there were elders that would have handled that differently. Now, I'll give you one more example. I had this older elder, came out of California. The reason he left California was he couldn't afford California. He grew up in the 50s in the Watchtower, 40s and 50s, and he's an older elder and never bought a house in California when you could probably buy a house for $30,000. Well, he can't afford California now, so he moves our way. And so I was assigned with this elder. His name was Jim. He was a nice guy, but man, he took everything so serious. So we were assigned to go to another pioneer's house for a shepherding call. Well, this sister was an artist, a great artist. And so we show up to her apartment, and when we get in, she offers us coffee and all that. And what do I see? I saw something that I knew Jim was going to freak out on. She drew a nude woman, okay? And Jim is about ready to have a stroke. So while she's getting the coffee, he says, we need to report this to the elders. I said, we don't need to report this to the elders. You can go to museums and see those types of portraits, right? And he said, no, this is not becoming of a pioneer. So I said, Jim, let it go. Please let it go. He didn't. He went to the elders, reported it, but I stopped it and I said, look, guys, if you go to any museum, you're going to see artwork like this. Let's stop this. We're becoming policemen. In fact, I believe that's what I said to the group of elders, because it started to become, we were getting into people's lives, and as people that are listening in, you know, that's the MO of the Watchtower. The governing body, they get into people's lives. Elders do the same thing. They're just a smaller group of individuals. So anyway, let me share my last experience. I got two of them. When I was an elder, and then I'll tell you how this actually even goes into the area when you're dismissed from the Watchtower. So I was the service overseer before I got dismissed, and we had the circuit overseer's visit, and he worked with a brother that never cleaned his car. I wasn't going to tell him anything. It's not my business. I just take care of my own car, right? Well, he came up to me after service and he said, you need to counsel brother so-and-so and sister so-and-so about the cleanliness of their vehicle. And I will tell you, he always had a dirty vehicle. And, you know, I should have, after he left, I should have just dropped it. But I went ahead and made a mountain out of a molehill. And I called this brother and I said, hey, is there any chance you can detail your car? Now, I didn't mean take it to a detail shop and spend $150 getting it all cleaned up. I just meant taking it to the car wash and getting all your McDonald's bags and all your trash and everything out of the car so people don't get offended. I went to work after I offered that counsel. 2 days go by, and I'll never forget, his wife called. My wife, my now ex-wife, is crying. And she said, Janie called me an MFer. And she's praying right now to the God of the Watchtower that you get disfellowshipped. And I said, what? So I call, and of course, Janie answers the phone and said, I prayed to Jehovah that you get disfellowshipped. I said, okay, Janie, what's this all about? How dare you tell my husband that we need to clean our car? And you know what? That backfired on me, because for 2 or 3 months, he shunned me. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this in a congregation, but witnesses, even though it's not announced, there is unsanctioned shunning. I was shunned for 3 months despite being an elder. But you know, I truly believe, and I'm going to close here, and I'll share one last experience to show how it bleeds over even after you're dismissed. I believe whoever she prayed to, her prayer was answered because I was excommunicated or disfellowship, whatever you want to call it, about 2 months after. And what had happened is, I'm just scratching the surface. I was I was so tired of of dealing with people when I shouldn't have been dealing with people. I was tired of the organization telling me I had to dictate this person's faith. I was tired that circuit overseers were telling me I had to do this. I had to do this. I had to be part of this committee. I had to be part of this committee. I was so sick of it that I had a nervous breakdown. And what had happened, and I'll just share it. I came up with this idea because you got to understand 12 years ago, YouTube wasn't really accessible. It may have been, but I didn't know anything about it. I had a Nokia phone. I didn't even have the type of phone I have now. So I didn't know that there was an ex-witness community. I didn't know anything about leaving quietly. And of course, I would have never left quietly. They would have hunted me down. So I devised this situation because I ended up so sick that I admitted myself into the hospital. And my wife got some encouragement from the elderettes. Again, they were making a mountain out of a molehill. They told her, don't pick him up. Now, I was an hour and a half away from my home. I had to hitchhike home because she would not pick me up at the hospital. So I came up with a plan. I told my now ex-wife, I said, hey, guess what? And I was upset. I was upset that she wouldn't pick me up. But I was also upset that I was in an organization that was making me sick to my very core. I was suicidal. So I came home and I said, guess what? You're free to remarry. So so that didn't go too well because she went straight to the elders. And if I could do it all over again, I would have just said, look, honey, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. But because she wouldn't have been free to remarry. But I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know that you could. I didn't know a lot of the processes. There are people that actually leave the Watchtower and nobody knows about it. But that wasn't my case. I didn't do a lot of research on it. I ended up getting excommunicated. And by the way, when I met with them, they tried to humiliate me. They tried to make a mountain out of a molehill. I went in. They said, what happened? I said, this is all I'm going to tell you. Angie is free to remarry. Make your decision. One of the elders tried to humiliate me, and I'll tell you what he did. Out in the county, there were some massage parlors, which probably give more than a massage. And I know that because when I worked at the sheriff's office, we did stings there, right? Well, anyway, one of the elders said, are you going to the massage parlors out there? And I'm like, what? This is what they do. They not only do this to sisters, they do it to men. They want to humiliate you. So I just said, look, I'm going to walk out, make your decision, and I'm out of here. And they made the decision to disfellowship me. Now, let me show you how this bleeds over. Again, the title is Making Mountains Out of a Molehill. I am now free. I finally get to have my dream job. I was working for the fire department. Then I started working in EMS. Then I got into law enforcement. I worked in the jail division when I first started. Well, I was shocked how many witnesses I booked in when I worked in booking. Now, when you're in the jail, you don't carry a firearm. You have to qualify, but you don't carry a firearm when you're in the jail. But when you do court security or when you do transports, you have to carry your sidearm, and you also have to certify with a tactical shotgun. So anyway, I booked in a sister that was writing bad checks, and I feel she was writing bad checks because they were broke all the time. You got to understand, and you know this: the Watchtower isn't going to help you with your car. They're not going to help you pay your rent. You could pioneer for them, but they're not going to help you do anything, right? So she wrote a bunch of bad checks. It was in the paper, big thing. I didn't book her in, but I'm working the pods, and I went to the female pod, and I was kind of shocked she was there. And now remember, they have these lock boxes in the jail. So in the Sally Port, if I'm not doing transports or court security or guarding an inmate at the hospitals, I have to lock my weapon and my taser in the lockbox. You cannot take that in the jail, right? So she knows that. So this is what she told me. Now remember, I am now a mentally diseased apostate. I am now an ex-witness. That's what I should have said. I'm an ex-witness. And lastly, I'm disfellowshipped. Right? She comes up to me. I'm doing rounds. And she said, I'm going to tell the elders you carry a firearm. And I'm like, is this ever going to stop? Is the fact that people make mountains out of molehills ever going to stop? Well, I could tell you, I think everyone in the audience that listened tonight have had experiences just like mine. And I'm going to just end it there. If anybody wants to comment, if you have an experience where an elder or a pioneer or anybody in the organization made a mountain out of a molehill, I'd love to hear from you.
Well, very good, Stu. Yeah, go ahead. You're on with us.
How you doing, Joe? It's RJ here.
Hey, RJ.
I love the topic you're talking about. Mountain out of a molehill. I was born in, but I was mostly in from age 16 to age 21.
Okay.
And I remember me and my friend from the hall, we were hanging out with two girls one was from our hall and one was a friend of the other girl. And we were just like walking around town and going to the movies. And then we ran into an elder from our hall. And then he was real cool with us. He was real nice. And there was no heat. There was no disrespect or anything. We said hi to him and everything. And then after the fact, he was calling everybody up and making a federal case out of it. We were just two people hanging out.
I knew it.
And then the witness way of doing things, like if you go by that, is you can't date unchaperoned. But we were in pairs and we weren't even dating.
And here's something else. What about, is it Matthew 18 where he should actually approach you first? Why couldn't he say, hey guys, you having fun? What are you guys up to? Or talk to you in private. But to go to other people, that's another big problem in the organization.
Yeah, it really struck me bad, like, because the way he did it, like, he was like, he didn't confront us at the time. He went behind our backs, you know?
Yeah, got it. That's an MO.
And he was like considered like a moderate elder. He was like considered like the type, but he does his job. He has his family, and it's just a hobby he does. You know, he wasn't like a hardcore elder. You know.
Yeah.
But you know, like they show their colors. You know, like I wish I would have been smarter and understanding like situational awareness and because I gave up a lot to be a dedicated witness, and you can't get that time back.
No, you can't. I really appreciate that story because I don't know how many times I call them elderettes, whatever you may just call them regular shit. But how many times they'd come up to me and say, "Hey, you got to talk to so and so. He was with a sister, and I don't know what their intentions are." And I'm thinking, "Well, that's none of my business. If it's in the daytime, if they're who cares? But people they have to be in everybody's business.
You're right about that. But, another brother I knew, he went to my grandparents' hall, and I guess he left a few years ago. He had a problem with me over something, but it was one of those things where he never got to confront me about it. And I'm glad he didn't, because whatever issues we had, he's out and I'm out, and I can talk to him as a human being now.
Great.
Because, he felt he had to do what he had to do, and he was probably power tripping and ego tripping back then. And being a witness, my mindset, I'm not of the clearest mindset. I'm getting things wrong as well. But, we're on a even playing field now, and I can talk to him as a human being.
I appreciate your comment. That's great. That's good news.
Yeah. And I think like Dick Borghi, who's on break right now, wishing for a fast recovery for him. He talked about how a lot of these elders, they don't have great, job positions and positions of authority, but they can volunteer to be an elder, and they can do that. And that's how they get stature and authority. And a lot of them abuse it, because a lot of them are painters, they're, laborers, they're whatever, window cleaners. Bossing other witnesses is the only authority they have in real life.
Yeah. And did the Apostle Paul, I believe, I don't know if it's 1 Corinthians or 2 Corinthians. I know this is not a Bible day, but he said that we're not to be masters of another person's faith. And it seems the Watchtower, that's their biggest MO.
Yeah. Jesus said to the he that is without sin cast the first stone. And then he told that prostitute is go forth and commit no more sin. He didn't beat him over the head with it. He understood. Yeah. He was understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Showed mercy.
Yep. Great comments. Thank you.
Can I speak up?
Yes.
Hello? Hi.
Hi.
This is Bonnie Wilbur. I used to have a channel. XJW Jane Doe. Anyway, this is concerning the comment that brother made about you listening to Walk Like an Egyptian. He said that they were God's enemies. See, that shows how stupid they are. Because I'm reading this straight out of the New World Translation, Isaiah 19, starting in 24. It says, in that day, Israel will come to be the third with Egypt, with Assyria, namely a blessing in the midst of the earth, because Jehovah of armies will have blessed it, saying, blessed be my people Egypt, and the work of my hands Assyria, and my inheritance Israel. If you know even just a little bit about the Bible, you can walk rings around those people, because they only know scriptures that Watchtower tells them. that they can use in service. They don't know the Bible at all. If you know the Bible, they're very ignorant, actually. And that was a very ignorant comment that he made to you.
Well, I appreciate that you shared that. And that was Isaiah 19.
Isaiah, yes, Isaiah 19, starting. Well, actually, if you start in verse 23, read all the way through from 23 to 25. Jehovah says Egypt is blessed. That Jehovah blessed Egypt, and they're His people. So
thank you for sharing that.
That's right out of the New World Translation. So,
by the way, along with your comment about witnesses really don't know their Bibles. Okay, you know they use that New Light scripture. Where is that at? Jeremiah? I can't remember. I'm losing it. I might be getting a little bit of dementia, but here's the problem with that comment he made, that the governing body never has to apologize. Let's say all the government said, okay, you are violating human rights. You're going to stop this fellowshipping, and you're going to start letting people make their own choice on blood. Let's say that was the best case scenario, right? Well, they don't want to lose their money, right? Their money they're getting, their tax exempt status. Let's say the governing body did, because they don't want to lose their money, did make an announcement that they could now have blood. It's up to it's their choice, and they're not going to disfellowship people, which is a human's right violation. You're right. Witnesses do not know their Bible. They will actually believe that is because of the scripture that says that the light gets brighter and brighter, when that's not even what that scripture is about. Thank you for your comment.
Well, another thing is...
Hey, Joe?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I continue? Another thing is, when you're talking about blood, they get that mostly, they'll say, well, it's the Noahide law that they can't eat blood. They're going way back then. If they don't use Acts chapter 15, verse 29. But if you read Acts chapter 15, if you read the entire chapter, verse 4 is talking about the governing body of Pharisees. It says the sect of the Pharisees is in on this decision whether they should eat blood or not. So the governing body was made up of a sect of Pharisees. If you read Acts chapter 15 through the whole thing, chapter 15 verse 4, they were part of the governing body.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thanks for letting me comment, Joel. I enjoy your program. Thanks.
And I enjoyed your comments.
Hey,
Thank
Joe?
you. Yes.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey, Joe, I just wanted to catch that sister before she hung up. That sister is amazing. She had a YouTube channel for a number of years, and all she ever used was the Bible and the Society's publications. And I'm telling you, she would have eaten those governing body and any elder you can think of alive just from the scriptures, like those two verses that you just heard. She's amazing. I just wanted to tell a quick story about making a mountain out of a molehill. I'm sorry?
I think I followed her channel at one time. Yeah.
Yeah, I know I did. I did. I tried never to miss one.
Is that where you have?
Channel go, because that channel.
Is she still on?
I think.
Is that where you would look at the Watchtower and pick it apart? I think I used to watch your channel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the thing I really liked is how she would just use the Bible. Like, she would bring out verses that for some reason none of us really ever noticed, like what she just finished talking about just now. But I'll tell you a quick story about making a mountain out of a molehill. When I was in my early 20s and I was a born in, and you know how you hang out with nothing but the witnesses. And so there was a gathering a buddy of mine went to, and normally I would have been there, but this particular day I didn't go. So after the gathering, he stayed behind because he was good friends with the sister that hosted it.
and he stayed behind to help clean up and put up chairs and all that kind of stuff. And when he got ready to leave, his car wouldn't start. And it was kind of late, probably around midnight or something. And that day wound up being the coldest day of the whole year. And so it was way below zero, and his car just wouldn't start. So he called his dad, who was an elder. And he said, Dad, I'm out. And he was in the far north suburbs of Illinois. He says, I was at this gathering, get ready to leave. Car won't start. Everybody else is gone. I don't want to have this lady, take me home and have to drive all the way back. Can you come and get me? His dad refused to come and get him. He said, yeah, I'm not coming. It's too cold, and I don't feel like getting out of the bed to do all that. I got to work tomorrow and all that. You just stay there and figure it out and come home, tomorrow. So he did. Got up first thing in the morning. Neighbors are out there. They're all helping each other. Tried to get his car started, wouldn't start. Called, AAA came out, got a battery, went home. Thought the whole thing was over with. We go to the meeting that Thursday, and after the meeting, he gets pulled into the back by the elders. We're here to let you know we're forming a judicial committee because we believe that you and this young lady committed fornication because you stayed all night at her house and all the rest of that. Now, his dad was the one who went and told the other elders because he was the only person that knew. Despite the fact that he refused to go and get him, he then goes to his elder colleague and says, my son spent the night at this sister's house. Pretty sure they had sex. We need to form a judicial. And so this got so out of hand that the brothers at our hall were getting ready to disfellowship, my friend, despite his protest, and nothing happened. The sister also said nothing happened. They even asked the next door neighbor if he heard any kind of noises, like a couple being intimate, which of course he just cursed them out and told them to get lost. How do you walk up to a complete stranger and say, oh, did you hear your neighbor having sex with somebody? But this is witnesses. And so they got ready to disfellowship them. The other elder body at this sister's hall, and this is probably one of the first times when I realized that despite the witnesses calling themselves so organized, that really each congregation in each region all over the world does things completely different. They had a meeting with her. She said nothing happened. And they said, okay, but we're going to put you on private reproof because this is the second time that this has happened. I guess there was some other time some brother spent the night for whatever reason. And they said, and because we told you to never put yourself in this situation again and you allowed this to happen, we're going to publicly reprove you, but it's going to be without restrictions. So they literally publicly reproved her. And in the same meeting, after the announcement, whatever the following part was, it was, the Q&A, she raised her hand and commented. She had zero restrictions. To this day, I've never heard of that. I don't know if you have, but that's what happened in her hall. Now, back to my friend's hall, which is my hall. They were getting ready to disfellowship him. The elders had to intervene, and they said, listen, she said nothing happened. He said nothing happened. And that's all that we can go by. If something happened, Jehovah will reveal it, and so forth and so on. But in the interim, since this is what both of them are telling us, and nobody can prove anything different, you don't have grounds to disfellowship them. The only reason why we're probably reproving this sister is because this is the second time this has happened. Otherwise, there wouldn't be anything but just, use some sound counsel for the future. And so that was the only thing that prevented, my friend from getting disfellowshipped over that. Now, in my opinion, that's an example of the elders making a molehill into a mountain. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? I think I'll share one more story with you that really affected me greatly, real quick.
I have something I'd like to say, but this is Donald from Texas.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
It sounds like all of this it's snitching. It's like, people going behind each other's backs, snitching on each other just to get people in trouble. That's no paradise at all. That's no spiritual paradise. That's just garbage. It's just, it's adults acting like little children running around. I'm going to tell your mother, I'm going to tell your father, that kind of thing. It's just garbagey stuff. It's, and it's just, there's just no paradise in that. There's no peace. There's no joy.
It's all actually slander. When you pull somebody's reputation through the mud and you do it publicly, it's actually slander.
Yep.
Well, let me just share one example of how, there was an individual that talked about two different congregations doing two different things, right? I'm not making this up. I had went to an elder school, and they shared some. I hated elder schools because it's not encouraging. All they teach you is how to handle judicial matters. I mean, people don't want to deal with that all the time, not sane people. But anyway, one of my buddies who now he's deceased because he committed suicide. He was one of my best friends. We became elders at the same time. One time we were talking. We went out to eat, and I said, "What was the weirdest thing you ever saw in a Kingdom Hall?" Now he was in Dodge City, Kansas. I had moved to Colorado, and he said, "You're not going to believe this." And I may have shared this experience before, but there was a pioneer brother. He was a ministerial servant and a good guy. And there was a sister. Her dad was an elder, and she was madly in love with him. But he didn't want to pursue it, and he wanted to be friends, but he did not want to pursue it. Well, she must have had some sort of I'm not going to say mental condition, but she got another friend, and they said, "Hey, I need a witness, and we're going to go to the elders." And what they did is they went to the elders. Now I'm not making this up. This is documented. They went to the elders, and they said that he gave both the sisters marijuana, and he fondled one of the sister that liked him. So they confronted him, and of course, he didn't know anything about it. They disfellowshipped him because you got two witnesses, right? Now, here's the problem. The conscience started working on the one sister that was talked into helping this sister get this kid in trouble. So she goes to the elders and said, "Hey, we made this all up." And this sister just was so madly in love, she would rather see him disfellowshipped than move on with life, right? And find another brother. Well, anyway, this is how they handled it. I am not making this up because I truly believe John would not lie about this. Because I asked him, I said, "How did the elders handle that?" Well, they brought him to the back and said, "Hey, we messed up when we disfellowshipped you. So we're going to make an announcement." And so they went up, and all they said was, "The matter between so and so has been taken care of. He has his privileges back, but he is no longer a ministerial." So he was still no longer a ministerial servant. He was still no longer a pioneer, but he could have his privileges back. Now, what do you think the congregation thought about that? It's just wacko, man. It's men that are not qualified. They're not lawyers. They're not social workers. They're not case managers. They have no qualifications, and they sometimes fly by the seat of their pants. They shoot from the hip. And that's just one example. Well, that's all I got. If there's no more comments, Rick, do you want to go to the next show?
Well, I think we have some more people. Now is the time.
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Did you want to say hello, Joe? Go ahead. You're on with us. Did someone want to say hello?
Joe.
Yeah, you go.
Joe?
Yes.
Hey, this is Stephan again. I'll tell you another quick one. There was a brother, a elder, and I knew him because he came into the truth, even became an elder at my childhood Kingdom Hall. So years later, he transferred to another hall, and it just happened to be the hall that my first wife used to attend before we got married. So that's how all this is connected. In any event, long story short, this brother was head over heels in love with this particular pioneer sister. This other sister wanted to marry this particular brother. And so she concocted this scheme. And so what transpired was she went to the elders and said, I saw this pioneer sister, coming out of a hotel or something with this man, and it was obvious that they had had sex. And so that basically set off almost a year-long, what word do I want to use? She was dragged before the elders just countless times, just on and on and on this thing went. This got so out of hand that Bethel sent the circuit overseer to go and figure out what he could figure out and try to set this thing straight. And the only thing that kind of saved this sister is that she had been a pioneer, and she had pioneered for so long that a lot of people knew her. And so it wasn't going to be somebody that you could just, do whatever you wanted to. Nobody was going to find out. People knew all over the city of Chicago. They knew about this all the way up to Bethel. So they sent the circuit overseer. So the circuit overseer sits, and he's got all the, the elders, all these elders, and both sit. And he says to the sister, "Okay, tell me what's happened here. What did you see, and all of that." So she goes to her story. She just happened to be walking down the street, wherever this was, sees a sister coming out of the hotel, all hugged up with some guy, and blah, blah, blah. And so he says, "Okay, and when was this again?" And so she says, "Well, this was on this time, and exactly on this date and time, and this and that and the other thing." Well, he knew this pioneer sister because she would volunteer for all kinds of circuit assembly parts, anything they needed for it. So he actually knew who she was. And when he mentioned that date, he called his wife, and she pulled out his schedule. And he looked back at his schedule. He goes, "Was I any place on such and such a date and this and that?" She said, "Yeah, you were here," and blah, blah, blah. And he remembered the function that they were at. And the sister, the pioneer sister who was accused of adultery or fornication, I guess, was at that function as well, again, because she volunteered for everything. So he jumped out of the chair. Now, this is what I was told from an elder. He jumped out of the chair. He got within inches of the sister who was making the accusation and says, "You are a liar. That sister could not have done what you said she did on the day and time that she did because she was at a function with me. And I remember that, and I just confirmed that with my wife. You are lying. She was not there. She was at this function. I think they were feeding the pioneers or something for a convention part or something, whatever it was." She goes, and he said, and she was there. He goes, "I remember that." He goes, "She could not have done what you said because she was with us at this function," and they wind up disfellowshipping the sister that made that accusation. I don't know if you consider that a mole out of a mountain hill, but that with the lengths to which this sister was trying to go.
That's exactly what we've been talking about. Everybody's been on point. I'll just say this,
Right.
and I'll share one more comment. When I was being raised in the Watchtower, real quick, they removed a ministerial servant. They had like a talent show. I don't know what congregation in Pueblo. There were like 6 congregations, but one of the congregations had a talent show, and this poor ministerial servant played the acoustic guitar, and I guess he played Stairway to Heaven. I don't know the background on Stairway to Heaven. They removed him as a ministerial servant for that. Again, it's just stupidity, Anybody else?
Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's RJ again.
Oh yeah, RJ.
I guess one story I got to tell is my uncle, and we're talking early 80s. One sister from the hall was having a divorce, and the guy he was with, he was kind of crazy. He was kind of like he had big teeth and blonde hair, kind of like Gary Busey, and he was a little nutty in the head. And then the sister who was married to him, she was having problems with him, and she started dating my uncle, and my uncle moved in with her. And then my grandpa, who was big into being a witness at the time, he gave him the business, and he said, "You're a disgrace to the family. I'm never talking to you again." And that lasted for every bit of 20 years. And it took a few people in the family to talk him into, "Hey, that wasn't right. And hey, you can talk. It's okay to talk to him again." for them to get on the same page again. And
Yeah.
this is the toxic environment that Watchtower creates.
Yeah.
Somebody in a consensual relationship or that's broken up with somebody, them jumping the gun or whatever, it broke up that family dynamic. And if Watchtower does anything right, it's breaking up families.
Yeah.
And that's a story I remember.
You know, Watchtower is actually anti-family. They're anti-family. Anybody else?
Well, they're
And then I'll have one last
pro-family
comment.
they're pro-family if you walk the line and do everything they say, but if you have any contradictory thoughts, or if you think for yourself, then yes, it breaks up the family.
For years, they discouraged people from having children, and they wanted just pioneers. So I have to agree that they're kind of anti-family. I had the good fortune of growing up in a little town with little streets and lots of different religions and lots of very nice neighbors. It must be more difficult for witnesses if they live in rural Colorado or if they're homeschooled. What I realized as a teenager was the Methodists and the Baptists and the Catholics and every other church in my little town, and we had many of them, those neighbors weren't doing this to each other in their church building. I didn't know much about other churches, but I knew they weren't treating each other this way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and Pixie, what I was going to say, Pixie, is are you on the Reddit page? Like we talked about some of the witness topics on there. And one of them was...
I don't do Reddit, but I want to encourage everyone to go to XJW Analyzer this week. 2 days ago, they had the most marvelous show called The Musical. And someone has put this fabulous music on XJW Analyzer, and it's songs about growing up a witness. It rocks. It's got jazzy stuff going, and you will all love it.
But anyway, Pixie, one of the topics was what you would have to do to be treated like a disfellowship witness by ordinary people in the world. And you would have to be like a Casey Anthony, Larry Nassar type to do that. Like the way they disown people and pretend they don't exist. You would have to be the lowest of the low for the world to treat you that way. But that's just normal behavior.
Evidence. I guess what you're saying is there's evidence that that man or woman is a criminal and that they've had a trial and that they have very bad behaviors and very dangerous behaviors. With the witnesses, it's like a witch trial. So many of these things, going to a hotel if you're both unmarried and consensual, is not against the law. Smoking a cigarette is not against the law. Wearing a short skirt is not against the law. So many of these things that they are taken to these kangaroo courts for are not done by the Methodists down the street in their church because it's not against U.S. law.
There's been witnesses that got this fellowship. They were engaged. They just jumped the gun and started acting married before they were. And that's enough that, you know, it breaks up their families and it makes them a disgrace in their congregation. And among the people they know, it's absolutely disgusting.
It's very unfortunate. Very unfortunate.
And not only that, though, just all this chaperoning stuff. I mean, adults needing chaperoning when they go on a date. I mean, you're supposed to enjoy your date. It doesn't mean you're going to jump that person's bones every time you go on a date, for crying out loud. I mean, that's the way the witness is treated. It's like, oh, you got to have a chaperone. What do you think they're going to have? You know, do you think they're gonna have sex right there in the restaurant or something? I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, you want to spend time with your date. You want to enjoy the person. You want to get to know the person. But if you're in a big group, just because you're being chaperoned, you really don't have the chance to get to know the person at all.
Hey, I think the big irony is if you have all these prudish values and you have all these experiences you didn't get, or all these the past you didn't get to experience, it makes them extreme perverts later on, and then you have all the garbage that goes on later because they couldn't be normal people when it was important to be that way.
Yeah. You know what I was told by an elder? I was an elder.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Okay, did anybody know what the people in the Southern District of New York let loose this week? They have $100 million lawsuit coming against the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, wow.
Did you hear that about that?
I know there's some lawsuits, but I didn't know it was in the United States. I know in Pennsylvania, but
No, it was in New York. New York, in the lower part of New York. It's $100 million lawsuit. And
wow.
this person has all their facts together and all their garbage together. They're going down this time, and they're not getting out of this.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you. I found out who the person was and how much stuff they have, and it's true. Go look it up.
Okay, I'll Google that. Hey, before I let you guys go, just real quick, I was going to mention I was courting a sister. I don't know if they'd like that term, dating. I was courting a sister, and we had only courted for like 2 months. Now my ex-wife, but an elder approached me and said, how long do you plan on courting? And see, this is again making a mountain out of a molehill. I said, well, we'd like to get to know each other, maybe 5-6 months. He said, no. He said, you're going to end up committing fornication. They don't even trust their members. But in conclusion, so to make light of it, I'll share one last thing, because sometimes we got to have fun over this dumb organization we were a part of. When McNichols Arena, it was a 4-tier arena before they closed it down, and now the Watchtower has their own convention site. They used to call the 3rd tier the meat market. I'm not making that up, and that's where brothers and sisters would know where to go, single brothers and sisters. Well, I was an elder at the time, young elder, and I'd hear that term, and I didn't make a big deal out of it. In fact, one of the brothers said, "Hey, I'm heading up to the meat market." I knew where he was going. I was just one of those guys. It's none of my business if you want to call it the meat market. The sisters probably called it the meat market too. It was the tier where you go to meet brothers and sisters. Because let's face it, you're not going to meet a wife or a spouse unless you're at a convention or you go give a talk somewhere, right? So anyway, I came home, and about 2 weeks later, the elders had to make a mountain out of a molehill, and they decided to do a local needs on not calling the 3rd tier of the McNichols Arena the meat market. That's how ridiculous the organization is. So I thought I would leave on a happy note, a funny note. But that's the culture, right?
We had one of the first ones of those at the racetrack when we had our convention. And I was way past 21. I must have been 23, I think. And I had 3-inch heels and a beautiful suit and long hair. And I took my dad with me because I was with my parents at the convention. But this was where we were supposed to meet and greet other singles. And Dad said, well, wow, you know, we were kind of hard on you with those high school boyfriends that liked you. We didn't let you do a lot of that. Let's go up there. So I was up there about 20 minutes with my dad, and I looked around, and I turned to him, and I said, I don't see anything here I want. But yeah, they used to do that.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, this is Junction Guy. How are you doing?
Good.
I had an experience. It's probably been 10 years ago. I went into a convention like undercover, just to see what was changed and what was going on. And I don't know how many sisters. These were sisters in their 20s, and I was probably 40 then. They were in their 20s, and I was walking around. I kept walking around the Coliseum, just, you know, and so many of these sisters were like smiling at me, winking at me. And it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. I was like, wow.
You were probably attached.
Well, I was thinking to myself, well, you know, thank God it didn't happen. I was like, boy, if it had been that way when I was in the Watchtower, I probably wouldn't have left.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Well, guys, I really go ahead.
Let's go get them. Let's go get the sisters.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, I really enjoyed visiting with you guys. And
did you ever think, right from the beginning, when you came in there, they told you you're the publisher, and they're the faithful and discreet slave. You know, right there, that's a flip-flop. What the Jehovah's Witness tries to do is they want you to, everything they say is the opposite. You know, they're the publisher, and you're the faithful slave. Think about it. You know, everything they do is like a mental flip-flop.
That came to me too. I had that thought too on a Thursday night.
Yes, sir.
It's not about flip-flopping anymore. It's about money. Everything's about money.
Yeah.
Well,
guys,
I dangerous. It's
the reason why you got a problem. The reason why you have a problem with child molesters is because it's a lot of money to prosecute, and who has to pay for that? You are.
And you know why you're not allowed to wear suits anymore? Because they already have too many lawsuits. Get it? Whatever.
All right, that was good. That was good.
The point is, it's all about money. Everything. It's not about true worship no more. It's about money. The cloak of true worship has been spread out.
Yeah.
Bottom line, it always was. You know, my sister and brother-in-law went to one of those big conventions out there and wherever they were. And this was already 10, maybe 15 years ago, but they lined up, get all the witnesses lined up down the hall, down the walkway where you're coming into the building, and they all start clapping for you. I mean, it's weird. It gets really weird.
Oh, I saw that in Atlanta.
It's a lodge. It's really a lodge. It's a lodge.
Oh my God.
It's a lodge.
Yeah.
Well,
like a Mason, Masonic
one thing
lodge.
and then another. It's not about a sin. It's about a breaking the law and hurting kids. That should be number one priority. They got a big problem. They need to start taking care of it, but they're afraid because they got money out and they got money invested, and they just are kind of afraid to lose all their money. There goes the religion.
Gentlemen, we have to remember that is a crime. The word to use in that instance is crime.
Right.
Well, didn't I say crime?
I wanted to get a little bit away from some of the molestation stuff and talk about some of the other weird stuff.
No, it's the biggest problem on the scene, molestation.
Yeah, it is. But you know what?
It needs to end. Hey, I was married to a woman that was molested from 3 to 7.
I was married to her and hung on for 20 years. It was impossible.
They do
so
much weird stuff. They do so much weird stuff. I mean, yeah.
Listen, they need help, and they're not getting any help. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen my wife curled up to the side of the bed in the fetal position, just moaning and crying. It ain't right. You need to do something about these perverts. Now you got a circuit overseer being charged with it. It's time to stand up and do something.
Well, everybody will be held to account, I guess.
Generation of circuit overseers and stuff like that. Each generation of these circuit overseers, they keep coming from younger and younger people that are more and more coming out of this.
That's what's going to happen to the elders. They're going to have to go down to the bottom of the barrel and pull out an 18-year-old. I mean, what's that going to cause? This is going to cause more problems. And it's going to be a nightmare.
They're already doing it.
Yeah, I know they're doing it. But the thing is, it's going to cause more problems. It was causing problems when they were getting an elder that's younger than 30. He thought he was hot. But he really wasn't. He's a jerk. You go on the surface of the guy once, sometimes you learn about him, and you go, "This guy's an absolute jerk."
Yep.
In conclusion, guys, I'm gonna. Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, there's some excellent circuit overseers. Before I went to Brooklyn, I talked to a circuit overseer, and he was great. I really liked it and supported him. My father just laughed at me for even wanting to go and sign up.
Yeah, as long as you're not a company man, a real company man, they're not too bad. They can be down to earth. You can have more for dinner or stuff like that. But again, just it's just the basic teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses. If you go into them, it just gets weird. And like I said, they do this weird stuff all around the world that they don't even do in other parts of the world that nobody even knows about. But yet,
yes, but these people that are child molesters, they were sick in the head the day they were born. Okay, they're not normal, and they shouldn't be around children. There are some states that when they're convicted, they got to stay so many feet away from a school where kids go to. What do? We baptize them when they're still in prison. They get reprimanded. They end up in prison. They get disfellowshipped, and they get reinstated while they're still in prison. That ain't normal. That's sick.
That's what I'm saying.
And so it's gotta end before they're going to see any results. It's got to end, and I'm sure Jehovah, looks upon that and says, "Well, these guys need to learn their lesson. They're going to have to learn it the hard way." So they go through this whole program. In the meantime, I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, anyway, I want to end this on a positive note, guys. We're going to go ahead and conclude. And I don't know if you ever heard this joke, but it really kind of tells you a little bit about the culture of the Watchtower. When I was a new elder, and this is a joke, okay? And you might have heard this before. Do you know how they test whether a brother qualifies for Bethel? Did you ever hear that joke? Okay, so what the elders do, they get the brother that's interested in going to Bethel, and they have him in the back room, and they put a Barbie doll on one side, a Bible in the middle, and a can of beer, and they say, pick 2 items. And if he picks the Barbie doll and the beer, he's qualified for Bethel. I thought I would end it on a happy note. Guys, let's just be good to one another. Everybody has to be held to account. But we're doing the right thing. We're out of the Watchtower. Rick, I'll let you take it from here.
Well, Joe, I have to tell you, a very good program. And, here at the control panel, I can see everything coming in from all over the world. We get callers calling in from all over the world. Many of them aren't speaking up, of course, but we want to commend all those people who have called in. But I want to tell you, Joe, they love you. They love the program. What I do here is I look at retention rate. And your program tonight had an excellent, I give it an A+ retention rate. Now, what that means is, people stayed with you all the way through the program. So you're doing a great job, Joe. We hope to have you back. Hope to have you back on with us. And thank you for being with us. Appreciate it, Joe.
Yeah, you have and thank you for letting me babble.
All right. Well, you did a great job.
We like him. like Joe. We like Joe.
Well, we all love Joe. You got to love Joe. Thank you. All right, Joe. So listen, we want y'all to stay with us. We got more programming coming up right here on the 6 screens tonight. We're going to be going to JW World News, and we're going to bring you right up to speed on what's going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. So by all means, stay on this Facebook channel, stay on this YouTube channel, and for those that will be seeing this afterwards on TikTok, stay and watch all these programs we have, because I'll tell you what, this is getting to be quite the platform. This is where ex-Jehovah's Witnesses come to talk right here on the 6 Screens Telenetwork. Thank you for being with us. Stay with us. We're going to end this stream. We'll go to JW World News coming up next. Stay with us. Thank you.